You'll never get out alive. Now listen up.
Welcome to Ancient Library. This is Foliant number 2, Advanced UFO Literature, the B.M.C 2.0. The B.M.C stands for the Billy Meier case, and this video is essentially a deep dive part 2 on this case. Part 1 I made 3 months ago. You can watch this first if you want, but you don't have to. Does the name Billy Meier ring some bells, or is this the first time you hear this name? It really doesn't matter, because in this video I'm gonna educate you about the case and the happenings around Billy Meier since the early 1940s. Before we start, I want to give you a quick overview about the structure of the video. So the structure of the video. First of all, you can scroll down and you can read all the chapters, but I want to add a few info to the chapters and say a few more things about the structure of the video. So we're going to start with a compressed breakdown of part 1. It's going to be a quick breakdown of what we was going through in the first part of the deep dive, essentially. So the beginning of the case and the first 100 contacts. Then we're going to continue the contacts, talk about recent activity. The next section is going to be called Red Thread. It's basically a summary of the material, because it's so much. It's like a summary and with structured sections. And then we're going to enter the second part of the video, which is basically more the report and the investigative part, from chapter 6. Then we're going to talk about a chapter called Dissecting the Case, with all the evidence, critical questions, weak points, motives for hoaxing, a term called proselytization, if I pronounce it right, basically the attempt to instill beliefs. I learned this fairly recently, and it's a really interesting term, considering ufology in general. And we're going to talk about counterintelligence of thoughts surrounding the case. The motivation to remain neutral in general. About genuine wonder, a thought experiment, what if. The reputation in ufology and similar cases. And on the end, I'm going to give my core conclusion about the case as far as it's possible right now for me. So, this is the structure of the video. It's going to be a very long one again. And we're going to start with compressed breakdown of part 1. In this section, I'm trying to give you a view of the chronological progression of events regarding Billy Meier. He was born on February 3, 1937 in Bülach, Switzerland, and he claims to be a contactee since the age of 5, with humanoid ETs from another planet in another time-space configuration. Allegedly procreated by the advanced human intelligence to lead us, humans, through a potential time of great change, via the mission, the so-called mission he is on, which should relocate general universal knowledge, the creation energy teaching, and more back in our possession. The contacts are documented on multiple thousand pages and books over a span of multiple decades and are still ongoing. In the first Foliant, I was able to cover 115 contacts from a total of 883 at the time I'm making this video. We covered Billy's trips in the so-called beam ships, like spacecraft, around local planets, the Great Spacer, the Great Tour, and even a journey into another universe. And this is sounding indeed very wild. In part 1, I was taking time for every report, for every contact, and gave my detailed report, and basically was reading the contact and explaining the first big happenings in the Billy Meier case. So in this part, and for the upcoming contact reports, I will conduct the whole coverage in a more compressed way, to be able to take the necessary time to present the analysis in the more investigative part. A quick note here, one of the main differences to the first video, like I said, is the fact that we not talk about every contact, because it's almost 1,000 contacts, and I should make I need to make 5 videos in this scale to only present the case. So I'm gonna link everything, I'm gonna source everything. You can read every contact report in this case in German and in English. And there's material. It's like I said, it's a decade-old case. So you can go deep on this stuff if you want. So let's go to the next section. and that's new contacts. Before we proceed with the contacts, I want to address a few important things to minimize confusion, which is fairly easy to experience while encountering these type of contact reports. I will explain things more in depth throughout the video, but here are a few points I want to address early on. Billy Meier claims to be in contact with a ET race called Pleiadians or Plejaren. The characters or individuals he's in contact with are able to talk in German, which they learned in a very advanced process, pretty similar to the downloads like they learn martial arts in the Matrix. Most of the contacts, especially more later in the case, are telepathic. The whole detailed process of the two allegedly existing forms of telepathic communication are getting explained in a detailed way in the material. Throughout the case, Billy Meier has allegedly contact and conversations with multiple different individuals. The ones which he is mainly in contact with are going by the name Semyasi, it's a female character, Pata and Quetzal, they are both male. And there's another old man type of character. This was the first one he encountered at the age of 5 or 6. Goes by the name of Svath, S-F-A-T-H. And after this, in his teenage years, he was in contact with a ET girl named Asket, A-S-K-E-T, Ask E.T. I think that's just a random coincidence here. And another thing I want to mention is the lifespan of these ETs is allegedly 10 times or times 10 our lifespan, so 1,000 years. And Semyasi, for example, is 350 years old, which would be an equivalent of a humanoid woman on this planet of 35 years old. Pata is 800, around 800, and Quetzal is 400 years. And these three characters are the most present ones in the contacts, especially after the 115 contact. And now we proceed with the 115th contact. This is like the last contact I talked about in the last video, and I just want to give you a quick perspective here. Contact number 115 happened on October 28, 1978 at 12 a.m. approximately. And he was in contact, Billy Meier was in contact with Quetzal. And this was a contact on a telepathic basis, like I mentioned. And the headline of this contact is basically 83.4%. And that's the chance with what the Plejaren are saying that the mission is failing. So it's under 20% that the mission is going to be successful. The mission, I want to reiterate, is the FIGU group, Billy Meier, getting the wisdom and the knowledge out. We're going to go on more in depth in the video, just so you know what the mission is, basically the core thing on the whole case. The group got badly developments regarding social stuff. They're like ego trips. People are thinking they're more important, and they see no value in the mission right now, and they're actually considering to stop the contacts and stop the whole thing. And yeah, the FIGU group is actually not working together, and it's all just a big mess. So the ETs, especially Quetzal, is going very hard on Billy in this contact, and Billy was wishing hell on Quetzal. So you see there's even a little bit drama involved here. And I want to say one more thing here. I mean, if you think this is true, you have to consider this guy, Billy Meier, is basically a gateway through these ET, advanced humanoid ET species, which we are basically low primitive animals to, and they can't understand how is this not working. Maybe they got technology to see in the future and stuff, whatever measurements, and they see we actually not getting our shit together regarding this mission. So it's yeah, it's a little bit crazy to me how it's actually not working. But I mean, I'm not stepping in these shoes if this is true. But yeah, I'm going off on a tangent here. So we continue with the contact 116, and then Pata talks to Billy. He's there to de-escalate and got some new rules for Billy and the FIGU group, some new guidelines where he thinks maybe we can save the mission and it's not only a waste of time and energy. And there is a discussion about 2 declined core group members. You see, the FIGU is like about 50 people with Billy Meier, and there's like secondary members and whatever. And the Plejaren said there were 2 people that they basically were destined to be in the group and would lead the group and doing good work in the group. But the people in the group are wearing so bad, got such a bad mood, and just rejected those people, and they say they're not going to be in this group in their lifetime. So the Plejaren think it's a big L for the mission, so they were actually thinking it's all not worth it. So now you basically know the situation, what's happening at this time and space at 1978. And I'm now going to proceed to summarize a large amount of contacts. I will do this in decades, 1970, 1980, and so on. Because, if you want to get in detailed information, you can go to these contact reports, and I'm summarizing everything, but in some contact reports, it's basically just a dialogue, and we don't have to pick everything up they say. It's basically too much information. So we start with 1970. In the 1970s, most of the contacts, in fact, all of the Pleiadian contacts we talked about until contact 116, are happening in the 1970s. The first Pleiadian contact happened on January 28, 1975. And at 1980, we got a total of 126 contacts. So there are 10 more contacts happening in the 1970s. From the 1980s to the 1990s, we got 108 more contacts happen, so a total of 234. From 1990 to 2000, we got 45 more contacts happening, so we are at the number 279. From 2000 to 2010, we got over 200 more contacts happening, so we are at 485 at 2010. From 2010 to 2020, we got around 250 more contacts happening, so at 2020 we are at contact 729. And from 2020 to now, the last contact, which was 883, happened on April 15, 2024. We got like 150 contacts happening in these 4 years, rawly. So we go to the next section, which is called recent activity, and that's like about 2023, 2024, last year and this year. And all of the contact reports are documented in English and German, like I said. They are public, everybody can access. And there are books from Billy Meier. You can get the digital copies. You can buy the book if you want. It's not like they're making a lot of money with this. So at the Semjase Silver Star Center, that's the location where the FIGU members resident, like where the FIGU members residence is. They meditate and try to get the knowledge out and conduct their mission. So I want to say a few more things on this. The fact that this case was getting recognized in the 1970s and seems to be still ongoing is very remarkable. Considering Billy Meier's age, I guess it's obvious that the contacts are not including much physical action. Like in the earlier contacts, where if you read through, you will realize way more physical contacts were seemingly present and aspired by these ETs. The core element these days seems to be communication and progression in the so-called mission, which I guess will end, at least, with Billy Meier soon, considering, like I said, before his high age of currently 87 years. But there are two things which seem very important and were repeatedly broadcasted through the released contact reports in the last few weeks and months. The first thing is the Plejaren proclamation from early 2024. I got this on my channel in, I think it's Tome 8, Urgent Ufology. That's the outro of this video. That's the Plejaren proclamation. If you want to watch this, you can look up there. And it's basically 4 points saying that none of the UFOs the people see around are from the Plejaren, and they are most likely from Earth humans and from other ETs, and the Plejaren got absolutely no contact with these, so they basically took themselves out of the equation. And then the second point is important information in the contact reports from April 2024, so pretty recent, about a group which were considered dangerous grifters by the FIGU, Billy Meier and his ETs. They used the Billy Meier material and added their own fantasies and formed a type of cult with bad intent. And Billy Meier, etc., doesn't want to be associated with them, and that's basically the crux of the message. That's one example of some contents of the recent contact reports. So, you see, it's getting pretty busy. Like I said, many contacts happened in the last years, so it's actually going up instead of down. So I think if this is the real mission, they try to end this. I think the mission continues even when Billy Meier dies, but you can read this in the material, and we're going to talk a little bit more on this later. So, okay, this was the section recent activity. There's not really much to say as of right now. And now we move to the next bigger section called Red Thread. It's like basically a big summary of all the things happening in these contact reports. And this is the last part of the video where we talk about the presentation of the case, and the next chapter, chapter 7, will be starting the report or investigative part of the video. So stay tuned. So the Red Thread, or what's it all about? A summary of contents delivered from the Pleiadian or Plejaren contacts through Billy Meier via the contact reports in a time frame of several decades. I picked 10 things which I would consider the most important or remarkable assets from the case. The human origin and history. No apes, no Darwin. The first human in the universe was not from this earth. The origin of races and ethnicities, Asians and Caucasians came from different places in the universe than black or red-skinned people. It's all explained in a lot of pages and in great detail. The laws of creation. What is creation? We would call it the Big Bang or the universe. It's about dimensions, different space-time configurations, and the space where we live in and we know basically nothing about. The creation energy teaching, the core part of the mission, the heart of the mission. Through Billy Meier's books, especially two to mention, OM, simply OM, and The Goblet of Truth. It's about elevating the human spirit and educating us about life, death, and what happens after we die in the material life. And that the lives are to collect wisdom through multiple lifetimes in circles and rest in a spirit world type thing for, in our time measurements, 150%. 150% of the time we lived. So if somebody is getting 100 years old, his soul is resting for like about 150 years in this spirit realm thing, and then he gets reincarnated on this planet. So they say also that the soul is bound to a planet, so if you want to get reincarnated on a different world, you have to go there and die there, according to the Pleiadians. It's all explained in great depth, and it's actually mind-blowing to me how this guy came up with all of this, if this case should be a hoax. The next point, known mysteries to us, like Atlantis, Easter Islands, the Bermuda Triangle, and more. The Bermuda Triangle, for example, they explain the weird effects the disappearing of ships is caused by radiation from a particular sun. They say our Earth moved out of the range a few decades ago, so these days there are no more anomalous happenings in the Bermuda Triangle area. The next point, ancient Egypt, and all the history and origin about it, plus a rather malicious ET race, which was located miles underneath the big Giza pyramid, the so-called Giza intelligence. Many books of Billy Meier contain information about types and uses of meditation and other mental things which strengthen the human spirit. The next point, the Talmud of Emmanuel. Emmanuel, aka Jesus Christ, and his teachings, which were similar to the energy creation teaching, and his work later got picked up by a rather evil people which manufactured a non-truthful religion called Christianity, emerging from the year 189 on. The time travels with Ascot part, in which travels in the past and future were conducted to advance Billy Meier's horizon and to do certain things, meet certain people, do whatever you do in the past or future, and to be able to write his work and the so-called mission. So to basically educate him. And what I also want to mention here, if he's actually conducting time travels, so God knows how old the guy really is. So there are stories like he was around with these ETs for like weeks or multiple days, but he was only away for a few hours, so they done some time travel shenanigans. And it's all sounding ridiculous, but you can read it in the contact reports. And like this is the first part of the video where I just present the information here. It's not analysis or something. It's just I present the case for you to get a view and get a glimpse of get a picture of the case. And in the next section we're gonna get down on the stuff, dissect the case, look for the evidence, and look if the stuff is actually worth to talk about. The next point is predictions and prophecies, including the so-called ENOCH prophecies. And what's the difference between a prophecy and a prediction? They say a prophecy is more a raw estimate and it's often dark, but it's not. It's not. It's not ultimately happening. It can be changed. So they say, okay, bad things happen, so maybe the people act good and so it don't happen. I think it's along those lines. And a prediction, if somebody says, okay, 9/11 happens 10 years earlier and it happens on this day, it's actually an accurate prediction. And there was one example, the San Francisco earthquake. Billy Meier was allegedly traveling in the future and was looking for the aftermath of allegedly happened San Francisco earthquake. What is pretty weird on this point is I don't know why he mentioned this specific location, and he said in the near future. So if there are people are really believing in this material and living in San Francisco, I bet they can't sleep there. I guess they are getting out of there quick. So they say he can say certain things because he doesn't want to cause fear and doesn't want to get caught by some Secret Service guys or something, or some terrorist force or whatever. So it's all pretty raw estimates. But in this case, he said the San Francisco earthquake. So that's a particular point of the predictions and prophecies part. And the last point, the attempts on Billy Meier, which were allegedly 23 attempts on his life. I found out about this very late in my research, but there was some reports on some attempts on him, and some were actually seemed pretty real. And there was some other 1 or 2 pretty ridiculous cases. For example, there was one guy approaching Billy Meier at his FIGU location early in the morning or at high noon, and he was like throwing a knife at him to harm Billy, but it was not working, and there were actually people conducting a ninja kunai type of attack operation. Seemed pretty ridiculous to me, but if you got so much stuff, so much information out, why you should create such a ridiculous story? It would only harm the reputation of the case. But yeah, I'm going off on a tangent here. Let's before we go to the next section, I want to just say a few more things. And there was a high amount of general information, including about, for example, other planets, rather near or far away, like 5 light years or 500 light years, other life forms in the universe and worlds, and where they are located, and everything in between and around. These are just a few highlights compressed in a few words and sentences to give you a glimpse, give you a picture of the case, and of the level of strangeness emitting from this case. We're going to explore many different angles and viewpoints on this material, so stay tuned. And one thing I want to mention right now is, this is either a lifetime-changing contact case for the whole of humanity, or the deepest and most creative UFO hoax story ever produced. So now let's go to the next segment and start the actual report. And the next segment is called Dissecting the Case. So let's dissect the case. The contact reports are going back to the year 1942. This was like where the first contact reports happened, and Billy Meier was 5 years old. But public reach, I think it was around the 1970s, the early 1970s, maybe 1975. Some people got some information early on, but in 1975 the information was going overseas to the US, and the case got some recognition. So Billy Meier is a contactee, or abductee, how you want to call it, investigated by an old generation of ufologists, which means nothing bad. Wendell Stevens, rest in peace, was one, for example, who was very deeply involved in the case, and he has done many trips to the FIGU place. And he's also responsible for the first translation of the contact reports, the so-called Semyasi reports. Randolph Winters is the guy who was doing the audio tapes in the 1980s, and 1970s, late 1970s, which you can hear on YouTube for free. I will put a link in the description. He compiled over a dozen of them, so it's like, a long sitting if you want to listen to all of them. But he does a good job to summarizing the case. But in the end, his credibility remains questionable because after he was on the FIGU place, he was allegedly the 50th core group member and was conducting work for the mission. But then he left the group, was going overseas, and was doing presentation and spread the information, which was nothing bad at this point. But he was earning money from this, and he got no permission from the FIGU group. So they distanced themselves from him a few years ago. So he deserves some credit for doing the tapes, but in the end he was not ready to handle the information in a good way. So to this day, the FIGU exists and proceeds to fulfill Billy's mission, which is there to elevate human levels of knowledge and spiritual growth in the next 800 years. A potential time of change, and this is connected to the Waterman era, the so-called Age of Aquarius. One note here, the whole astrology thing and Age of Aquarius thing is pretty stigmatized by some New Age type of stuff. But yeah, the Pleiadians think this stuff is pretty real, and personally my belief is, sometimes I joke with star signs, but I would not put people in boxes with labeled a certain star sign. But my honest opinion is, when you get born, and the planets and the celestial bodies and the suns and there's a certain radiation, a certain vibe around, I think you inherit that when you get born into this life, and that's basically the star sign. But the Pleiadians say we got this all wrong. I mean, the basics are right, but like the calculations are not right. So the names or the star signs we call people are actually not accurate. So like I said many times, there are many books and the contact reports, free to read if somebody want to get a full grip on the case and on the material. And like, it's the contact reports, and there's this whole general knowledge I was talking about in the last section in the red thread, like some pretty wild stuff. In recent ufology, this FIGU group gets labeled, or people near to the group are getting associated with the term proselytization, which means attempt to instill beliefs, or especially religious beliefs. So for many people nowadays, this group is considered a cult or a sect. But does this really make sense, considering the narrative which is highlighted by the information in the Billy Meier case? We will expand on this viewpoint later, but there's reason to believe counterintelligence operations and efforts were conducted to harm the validity of the case. And yeah, before we talk about this stuff, let's go over the evidence. And that's, I'm gonna give you a quick overview about all the evidence which is presented by the case. I would put it that way. And yeah, it's gonna be a longer section, so let's go. So let's talk about the evidence. At first, I want to give you a quick overview about the sections. I split it up in 5 sections considering the evidence. The first section is the metal samples. On different occasions, different metal samples were given to Billy by the Plejaren or Pleiadians, and they were analyzed by experts, and we're gonna dive deeper on this. The second part, the sound of a UFO. The sound of a sound recording of a so-called beam ship of a UFO, which has been recorded on multiple occasions as well, and which has been analyzed. And as far as I know, nobody was able to reproduce the sound until this day. The third part, the high number of UFO photographs and videos. The fourth part is about witness testimony, writings, books, and stuff along those lines. And the fifth part is a more special part, considering extraordinary evidence. And you're going to see what I mean when we reach this point. So, before we go through the different types of evidence, a few more things. The evidence section is sorted in such a way that the most scientific or empirical evidence comes first, and as we progress further down the list, it's getting more and more anecdotal. Of course, the border of these types of evidence seems to be different considering the degree of knowing about the evidence in quantity and quality. With quality, I mean scientific know-how or first-hand accounts which independently corroborate the validity of a certain evidence. For every segment of evidence, I will read smaller statements from different sources, and I will mention them, and you can look for the source in the description. So let's start with the metal samples. Like I said, there were different metal samples given to Billy at different dates for different reasons, and I think the main reason is to create physical evidence. And there were many experts which analyzed the metal samples. I would say the most famous or renowned one is Marcel Vogel from IBM. The man was holding 32 patents. He was inventing the floppy disk and more things along those lines. And in more recent times, his synopsis later got ridiculed or deemed invalid because it was like some things told that he was calibrating the machines not right or something. But this all screams plausible deniability to me. But we're going to pick on this subject later in the video. So, let me read something out of the preliminary report considering the metal by Marcel Vogel. Or it's about Marcel Vogel. I think it's written by Wendell C. Stevens, and it's based on the preliminary report by Marcel Vogel. So, we start here. The following unique properties encountered in examining the specimen make it exotic and very definitely point to an unearthly origin. There's a list of 10 points here. I'm going to read the points right now. 1. Unusual purity. In state of metal examined spectrographically. 2. No indication of catalyst or secondary spectrographic lines. 3. Unusual number of trace elements, ranging from the primary heavy all the way up the scale of density in a very uniform curve, with no breaks or gaps, up to the lightest gaseous elements. Again, these lines all indicate the same high purity for each element. Scientists involved have never seen anything like this before. 4. Strange, very uniform grain patterns, with a layer of horizontal grains sandwiched between layers of vertical grains, again sandwiched between that and another horizontal grain, etc., in a tight 90-degree latticework angle. 5. One metal surface showed evidence of an extremely fine mechanical cut, possibly even done by a laser. 6. Association of non-metallic crystals of strange structure and extremely high conductivity for the elements. 7. The end-to-end formation of bond patterns in the crystal structure and the spiral assembly or stacking of the crystals in the non-metallic substance was unique. 8. Some form of non-electrolytic cold synthesis process is very definitely indicated. 9. There is some evidence that the synthesis took place in a vacuum. This metal specimen was clearly not from anything ordinary, or certainly was nothing melted down in a shop or residue from some scrap bin. The real source of the small metal fragments may be just what the witness claims. We can offer no other explanation at this time. The investigation continues. So this was just a small part from the report of Marcel Vogel, and there is like a more recent edition, and I want to read something, a little note about this here as well. Marcel Vogel, research chemist for IBM for 22 years, had 32 patents and invented the magnetic disk coding memory system still used in IBM disk memories. A specialist in the conversion of energy inside crystals, Vogel probed crystalline structures with the most complete optical microscopic equipment available in the world, a system of scanning electron microscopes costing $250,000. Lieutenant Colonel Wendell Stevens, USAF, retired, one of the original investigators in the Meier case. In 1979, he sent Vogel crystals and metal samples Meier had received from the Plejaren. Vogel reported, when I touched the oxide with a stainless steel probe, red streaks appeared and the oxide coating disappeared. I just touched the metal like that, and it started to deoxidize and become a pure metal. I have never seen a phenomenon like this before. Of another metal sample containing nearly every element in the periodic table, Vogel stated. Each pure element was bonded to each other's, yet somehow retained its own identity. At 500x magnification, thulium was revealed. Thulium exists only in a minute amounts. It is exceedingly expensive, far beyond platinum, and rare to come by. Someone would have to have an extensive metallurgical knowledge even to be aware of a composition of this type, said Vogel. At 1.6 thousand magnification, Vogel said a whole new world appears in the specimen. There are structures within structures, very unusual. At 2.5K, he found the sample was metal, but at the same time it is a crystal. So, one last note here. Vogel put the full weight of his expertise in the summary comments. With any technology what I know of, we could not achieve this on this planet. I could not put it together myself as a scientist, and I think it is important that those of us who are in the scientific world sit down and do some serious study of these things, instead of putting it off as people's imagination. Again, here's another top-level scientist specialist who is unable to duplicate the material presented to him by Meier. So there's a big list of all of his patents here. I'm going to show them on the screen. And yeah, I mean, I'll put stuff in the description. You can read the detailed reports about the medal and where the medal was given to BILLI and what the Pleiadians say it is. And yeah, later, there was some, like I said, some counterintelligence, I guess. I'm not pretty sure, but yeah, you have to be, I mean, nobody of us got the whole scientific knowledge. We need to trust people, and this guy seems very trustworthy in the first place. So I don't know about his reputation, but yeah, that's about the medal. And now we go to the second type of evidence, the sound recording of the beam ship. So let's continue with the alleged recording of a UFO or the so-called beam ship. There are multiple recordings from multiple devices and occasions where the sound was recorded. To make things clear, it's not needed for the Pleiadian ships to produce these sounds. They can configure and disable a system which suppresses all sounds created by the craft. And for the visible aspect, they can cloak their ships visually to anything we can think of, even for an individual human being. For example, if there are two people on the hill, And there's the craft in the sky. They can do something with the brain waves and can make one people see the craft and the other guy is not seeing the craft. That's as far as I read it in the contact reports. So I was looking forward to play the sound right here, but there are some weird issues with the YouTube copyright stuff. I've done some check in advance, and there's no way to upload the original sound file without getting the video highly restricted and not available in many countries. Something I've never experienced before. I've uploaded like 30 videos on this channel, and I know what I'm doing with the music and stuff. And so I tried to upload a small video with the sound included, and it got flagged, and basically I had to take it down. And I'm not even in the partner program. Yeah, something I never experienced before. But you can check the link in the description and can listen to the full recording. And in the Foliant 1, in the first part about this case, I got a part of the sound also snuck in the report part, pretty at the end of the video. And yeah, I'm trying to describe the sound right now. It sounded like high-pitched frequencies. It's very loud. They're going up and down. And yeah, it's not very a pleasuring experience to listen to the sound. And yeah, now I will read a short part about the audio recording from Wendell Stevens' book, A Preliminary Investigation Report. Another sound analysis that was filmed with professional cameras on high-grade 60mm film was performed by the Excalibur Studios in Studio City, California. There, Niels Rognerud and Steve Singer, sound engineers and designer of electronic systems, worked on a Hewlett-Packard Spectrum Analyzer, model 3580. That contained a memory unit, a dual-channel oscilloscope and multi-track mixer with amplitude output, and a full-frequency sound control panel. They studied and analyzed the 30-second segment of the aforementioned sounds and a longer segment of the spaceship sounds that were recorded in front of 15 witnesses. This tape recording was made on July 7, 1980, in Obersedeleck, Switzerland. There, the sounds of the new variant free ship were recorded for 48 minutes in front of 15 witnesses with a total of 4 cassette recorders. Meier had 3 recorders with him, an IVA with an audio suppression unit in order to prevent distortions of the excessive decibels by means of limiting, as well as 2 smaller and cheaper portable cassette recorders without volume suppression. Meier positioned himself approximately 60 to 80 meters below the point from which the sounds in the sky appeared to come. Meier's wife Calliope used her own IVA recorder. She and Jakobus Bertschinger, Engelbert and Maria Wächter, Eva Biri and 2 of Meier's children remained approximately 488 yards west of the position taken by Meier, who had gone to a point on the other side of the group of tree trunks that can be seen on the first of the Obersedeleck photographs taken on March 8, 1975. On this day, the sounds were so loud that 2 members of the D family, who lived a half-mile away, ran out to see what's causing all the noise. They came just in time to observe the final minutes of the recording operation. Several inhabitants of the small hamlet of Singen, approximately 3 kilometers away, ran up to the mountain in search of the source of the strange noise, which had been heard by many of the inhabitants. The sound stopped when the new arrivals appeared on the scene. From Meier's position, the noise was a deafening, screeching sound that was so loud that Meier had to lay the recorder on the ground so that he could wrap his jacket around his head. Even after doing so, he had an excruciating headache that lasted for hours. Until the next day, he was unable to hear anything and his eyes hurt. The recording made by Miss Meier from a half-kilometer away were cleaner than the tape that Meier had made at close range. The distance was so great that we could not understand each other at the scene, even when we yelled. Therefore, we had to send runners back and forth. Now, the sound specialist examined this new segment of the recorded sounds and found the same as the previous teams. They found these sounds to be truly unique and in 3 respects. There were at least 30 or more discrete frequencies in a random or constantly shifting mix that ranged from 4 to 2170 Hz, but varied on an average between 470 and 1452 Hz. The amplitude of these frequencies was also constantly changing, whereby the dominance alternated. The wave shape was also constantly changing in a random periodic rhythm that caused characteristic beat. The wave pattern in the oscilloscope showed this constant and random shift in frequency, in which the principal waves of all frequencies came together in a perfect synchronization. At one moment, only the travel of the next moment in different directions and stages, thereby generating different patterns at one moment seemingly moving in a cluster in one direction, and the next moment in the other direction. Then they gradually expanded until for one moment. They formed a mutually precise and even distributed pattern, only then to move again into different relationships. All through, these changes appeared to be random and were not repeated in a particular order. They always appeared in a geometric relationship to one another. 2 other sound engineers and a synthesizer sound specialist joined the analysis team, and the sounds were re-examined, this time for possible duplication. All of these specialists agreed that the character of the sounds was unique and that any type of synthesis, if in fact such was possible, could produce only portions of the recordings we had examined, and that duplicating only part of the sounds, even in a short linear segment, would be impossible. The number of traveling and constantly shifting discrete frequencies and constantly changing amplitudes, which were shifting in relative dominance, exhibit duplication problems that exceed the abilities of a current state-of-art device. So this was just a short part from the preliminary report, and you can see they're basically saying there is like enough sources, enough material to do the analysis, and they're basically saying for the state-of-art at this time it's not possible to reproduce the sound. Another thing I want to mention is, what's not mentioned in this part of the report, is there is a correlation to the so-called Schumann resonance, which has been a extra low frequency surrounding the Earth, so basically the frequency of the Earth. And the sound specialists say the recording got a special correlation. So in the ufology, so if you're active in ufology and active on the UFO stuff, you can think, okay, maybe the anti-propulsion device of these craft need to be tuned to the planet where they're flowing around, basically. So the Schumann resonance, or the Earth's frequency, has to be embedded in the configuration of the craft. So this is the thing I can connect with this, maybe, if the stuff is real, of course. So it's not been reproduced yet, but I encourage any scientific people with know-how in this area to try to reproduce the sound. I got the thing in the description, so you can listen to the sound and tell me if you think it sounds fake or if it's like a genuine, mysterious sound recording. So this is what I talk about the sound. Like I said, I would love to have it in this video, but it's not possible, and I don't want to get the whole video, marked because of a 30-second sound segment, but I think it's very remarkable. Like I've uploaded a lot of stuff, and this is the first time ever I saw like this red box where it say, oh yeah, this sound is not allowed, you have to take, it's not been accessible from different countries, from many countries. There were a big list of countries. So that's about the sound. Let's go to the next sections, the photographs. So let's talk about the photographs. There are up to 1,000 photographs taken by Billy Meier of different craft, different spacecraft at different locations, different times, sometimes in the day, sometimes when it's dark. And there's even a claimed existence of more peculiar, more crazy photographs depicting female ETs, US satellites orbiting Mars, dinosaur-type creatures, and even a gate to another universe. So this is like rather wild stuff, and these pictures I mentioned at the end here are considered forgeries for different reasons, and we're gonna pick up on this later. For now, we're gonna concentrate on the normal pictures of the UFOs. And I picked out 5 from these hundreds of pictures, just for example, and we're gonna go through these. The first one, this is the picture number 200, which has been taken on March 8, 1976. And it's a little bit zoomed in. You can see the craft. It looks like it got some gold resembling on the craft, and you can see the detailed texture of the craft. That's like a very famous picture, by the way. The next picture is the so-called sunshot. This is like the number 174. It's like taken on March 29th, 1976, and it's like the so-called sunshot because you can see most of the Billy Meier pictures, the UFO is near to a tree. So people tend to think the UFO is glued, the model is glued. If it's a model, it's glued to the tree. I think the Pleiadian intend exactly the opposite. I think they've done the pictures near to the tree to show that the UFO got a normal size and it's not a small model. And on this shot you can see it's not even connected to the tree, pretty much. So it can't be a small model at this point. But it's like one for the debunkers. And we're gonna proceed with the next picture. This is like a rather crazy one, number 829. This is the so-called wedding cake ship, the wedding cake model. Because it looks like a cake. When you look, it got these little balls and all these crazy things on it, and it's pretty big ship. If you see, it's like there's like a vehicle, like a car down there, and it's like, yeah, it's pretty big. And of course, this pic, many people seen this and they think it's photoshopped. But if it's really taken in 1981, there's no way this can be photoshopped. So it's a pretty tough one. Then the next picture, there are depicted free crafts. I got a video of this later on. And yeah, that's like pretty crazy. He got 3 crafts on one picture, and you can see 2 of them got a different model than the one in the center. On the next picture, this is like only a zoomed in version. You can see it more clearly. The right and the left one looking more like a flat frisbee disc, and in the middle it got more like a little dome on it. So these are just 5 photographs. We could go over 100 of those. And I will link a video in the description which is multiple hours long and where they go through every picture in the series. I think they go through a multiple hundred, I think even 1,000 pictures if you're interested to see any picture. And I think that's even a little commentary to this. So this was just a quick section about the pictures. I'm gonna link stuff. I don't want to read. Don't want to read pages in every segment. I mean, there's one thing I don't know about the technology at this time in space. Like how the cameras were, how is it able to basically fake these pictures? And some analysis has been done, and they said like even in the 80s, or at least in the 80s, it's a little bit time ago, they said these pictures are genuine, at least these pictures where we talked about, the last 5. And yeah, I would love to see recent up-to-date technology and experts vetting those pictures to see if they're real or not. So let's talk about the video recordings. There are many video recordings done by BILLI Meier in between 1975 and 1981. And I'm going to show you a 3.5 minute clip where I put together some footage of some good clips from the BILLI Meier case. And yeah, consider the old technology and the date this stuff has been filmed. And there's no sound in the video. At the end, there are some small tooltips just to give you some small information. But I want you to take this in without any sound, without any disturbance. And yeah, maybe you can tell me your thoughts, what you think about this footage. I mean, one thing I want to mention regarding the pictures as well. Like, I never seen a UFO, a real UFO, so I can't say what's real and what's fake. And I think many people tend to be in the same position. And there was no Photoshop around, but many people think maybe these pictures are not even created at that time and space. Maybe they're created after the year 2000 to screw us all off. But there are many ufologists and many people which investigated this in the 1970s and 80s times, and I don't think they're all talking shit, to be honest. But let's take a look at the UFO clips for a few minutes. So these are just a few clips I put together in a small segment, and there are 3 more in the Foliant 1, in the first video done about the case. And of course in the description you can watch hours of material, hours of videos or pictures from this case. And yeah, that's just one part of the evidence. We got plenty of more to deal with. And again, I ask any interested person with know-how of photo and video stuff, especially with forgeries and decade-old cameras and recording devices. Same for the beamship sound. Any sound acoustic experts with interest on the case and even some quick thoughts, let me know in the comments, please. I would appreciate it very much. So we go to the next section of evidence, which I call writings, reports, and witness testimony. I have put them together because it's not really hard empirical evidence, but testimony can be valuable, especially if it's considered genuine and unbased. So, witness testimony. Between 1962 and 2010, there were over 120 known witnesses to various types of events that corroborate, verify, enforce, and prove the authenticity of Billy Meier's experiences. So that's what the FIGU is saying, basically. And I want to give you a quick overview over these events they were talking about. Clean-shaven Meier departs and returns a day later with many-day growth of beard after, for example, a 5-day space trip, The Great Journey, contact. Had a daytime sighting of a beamship or related craft. Caught sight of one of the ETs, such as Quetzal, Ptah, or Asket. Saw the fir tree that Semjase posed her ship on, all sides off after it was damaged, glowed in the dusk and later disappeared. Saw and or photographed a crop circle-like pattern in the grass or in ice soon after a contact. Heard the sound of a beamship or its loud noise made during a tape recording session or related UFO sound. Heard the voice of a Plejaren or Plejaren associate speaking to Meier. Witnessed Billy receiving or sending a telepathic message as confirmed by an immediately following event. Had a nighttime UFO sighting associated with one of Billy Meier's contacts or with a night UFO demonstration. Had a nighttime beamship sighting while Meier was aboard the craft or in radio communication with the witness. Passed PSE, psychological stress evaluation test. Viewed Billy's dozen or so photos of how San Francisco would look after a future devastating earthquake. We're gonna pick up this later. This is a very delicate part on the whole story. Took photos of the craft beamship. Saw Billy Meier suddenly return or appear after a contact. Viewed the disappearing tree demonstration. Noticed Billy suddenly vanished just before a contact. Witnessed Billy rapidly typing out a contact report the day or so after at a speed much faster than it's normal for him. So, I want to pick up on this quickly. So, before I want to pick up on this, a few more things about the witness reports. Like I said, there were like 120 witnesses on the page. I want to read one example real quick to give you an example how the witness stuff is structured. Herbert Runkel, 15 to 16 June 1980, contact number 131. I was staying in the house of Billy Meier and we were hanging around in the living room, in the kitchen and so on. We were sitting in the kitchen about 11 at night and Billy was drinking some coffee. We talked about several things. During this talking he suddenly smiled and said, "This night I will have a visit." After some more minutes and some more talking he stood up and went outside. The weather was horrible. There was a thunderstorm raging and it was raining very heavily. After about an hour he came back into the house. He was not wet. He smiled and said, "Tomorrow we have something to take pictures of and to film." Semjase set the ship down on the ground and we will have landing tracks. The rest of the night we discussed important things about space and our world and the universe. In the morning Billy, Jacobus and I went down to the place. You know the place well. Stephen Wendell Stevens down the hill from the house and the stock pond, and we took still and motion pictures and also shot video film in the from the fresh landing tracks in the grass. I shot 2 36-shot rolls of film and 1 Super 8mm movie film of the evidence. The ship had stood there over half an hour. So there's an additional note here. I'm very, very sure that there's no way for Billy to make these tracks. I have been many times a witness of landing tracks. I have very clear photos and all details from many different places, so I can say this to you with 100% certainty. For example, there's a place in Swiss, a spaceship landing in 76. After 4 years today, you can see the grass in this place grows differently from the other grass. Signed, Herbert Runkel. So this guy seemed to be a ufologist, if you're talking about in other cases. So, but this was just a quick example of a witness report of one of the multiple happenings surrounding Billy Meier. There's another special witness, I would say, goes by the name of Phobol Chang. And I want to tell the story here quick, where Billy Meier was pretty young, I think in his early 20s. He was going through different countries at the world. He was not having these daily contacts and was not conducting the mission at this point. And he was in India. And he was at a place called Ashoka Ashram. And this was like a temple type of installation. And he was there, and the first daughter of the main priest, high priest or whatever, how they call it around there, his daughter was Phobol Chang, and she was a small child at that time. And she was witnessing Billy there, and she was even sawing Ascot and was seeing like the UFO and stuff. And there are videos up on the FIGU page where you can see her whole statement. It's about a half an hour or something where she meets Billy and they talk about the stuff. And I want to add one more special thing here. This person is actually working for the United Nations and is very revered and got a good reputation as a political person. So why on earth should this person associate herself with a random UFO wacko from Switzerland all over the world? So I just want to leave you with this thought here. Of course, I can't know what's really going on, but it seems like these persons have met before, and there has been some genuine interest from Phobol Chang to go to Billy and give her witness testimony. And one last time, she's a revered United Nations politician or whatever, and she got a reputation to lose, so why she should connect herself with like a UFO wacko from Switzerland. So again, it's just one part of the evidence, and we go to the next section. I want to cut on this section where the writings, books, and contact reports are considered evidence. I think the other types of provided evidence, especially genuine pictures or physical evidence, suits better for a more substantive impression regarding the general interpretation of hard or solid evidence. If it's possible to 100% vet all of the contact reports somehow, it would be fairly easy to find unredacted events which corroborate the authenticity of the case. And yes, I said unredacted, because the system which records the conversations between Billy Meier and the ETs is an automatic system. And Billy only needs to type it down, and the two delicate things are only shown in a line of dots. So this is a whole new dimension of these contact reports, of this whole procedure, which still is currently running, and new contact reports appear on the FIGU website until this day. And at this point I want to make a quick interjection, because all these technological questions, how this all works, there's so much material, so much information in the case, for the propulsion system as well of the UFOs. It's not getting explained too deeply, but they are talking it's like two systems, and there's a thing like similar to tachyons, and I think the word tachyon is pretty known. I don't know if it's even a science fiction or fiction thing. I did not watch Star Trek or stuff back in the day, so I really don't know if you're just picking out these words and terms, or if it's a serious thing. Because if somebody is interested and is a little bit more, got more expertise in these physical things, in this like physics type things, I would love to hear your opinion. So we proceed to the next, the last big chapter of the evidence, and that's like the considered special evidence, and that's just a few things I want to mention here. And the first one is the oval-shaped laser hole, and the second one is the mysterious Lyran script. We first talk about this laser hole thing. In contact number 78, on July 6th, 1977, a very controversial part or contact of the Billy Meier case allegedly happened. Billy got visited by ETs, like it's nothing special at this point, and one of them is loaning him a beam pistol type laser weapon. Photographs of him and the ETs holding the weapon are circulating around. I'm going to show them on the picture here. You can only see the arm of the person, and it looks like a humanoid and a female person with black hair. You can't really see special stuff. And you can see the beam pistol on the pic. And yeah, it looks like a old school toy pistol, some people say. And even the Plejaren are telling Billy that this technology is multiple hundred years old, so it's not their up-to-date stuff. And yeah, they say it's got 2 modes, and you can shoot and you can make people unconscious, basically knock them out, or you can do damage. And he's shooting on a tree with this gun. So yeah, with the laser weapon, and he's producing an oval-shaped ring hole, looking like something incinerated through, or it actually looks like a laser weapon shot through, to be honest. And yeah, you can see, show some pictures here. You can see the hole. And like I mentioned, it's not the best part of evidence, but I don't know if a way of somebody's doing this, maybe with a, how is he creating this hole? I mean, maybe there are ways, but yeah, I mean, that's just one type of the evidence. I don't want to say too much about this. And yeah, quick note before we go to the last part of the evidence. And I want to just leave a thought here, and does all the stuff, like this laser weapon stuff, really help the case? Like, seen from a pseudo-advanced humanoid ET perspective. Like, yeah, I really don't know. So we go to the last part of evidence, and that's the mysterious Lyran script. Another rather wild piece of evidence, which was allegedly found by an anonymous private collector. It's allegedly 8,000 years old, and yeah, it's sent to Billy by an anonymous collector, and it's written on a paper-like material. And yeah, we're gonna take a look at this right now, and I'm gonna read the script for you. So I got like 2 translations. One is a little bit longer one, and the other one is a little bit more compressed. I'm gonna read both for you, and I'm starting with the longer one. It has been said in the prophetic sentence of the herald Enoch. He in his mission as prophet will be live again and repeated lives in multiple reincarnation as most important herald, Herald, just want to say it here to make clear what I mean, of the teachings of the Spirit, as they are given in the laws of creation, and brought and announced to the earth humans on terra, by the guardian angels from the stars Lyra and Vega. The herald Enoch says, I am the herald of truth, and in this mission I will be live again in important times by the names ELIA, JESAIA, Jeremiah, Emmanuel, Muhammad, and Billy. And so I will serve the human beings as a prophet among 7 times, before the change for the compliance with the laws and recommendations of creation will take place in their thinking. So I will be live in reincarnation in the new time when space will be conquered, and when the guardian angels from foreign stars will appear once again. My reincarnation in that time will be as Billy, and with the name EDUARD Meier, and I will dwell in a land of peace in the north, which will call Schweiz, Switzerland. The human being then may listen to my voice, so they may be led into the light of the teaching of the Spirit. Okay, I want to read the short version real quick, it's not pretty long. Quick note here, a photo of ancient Lyrian script scanned from contact report 117 on page 310 on the German version of the Pleiadian context. Just want to make that clear, that's like the overline, the overheader. And I'm going to read the short version here for you. There was a prophet, which was the prophet Enoch, which was ELIAS, which was an important prophet of the Spirit of the Lord, whose name was Moses, who was a leader of the earth humans as ELIA, ISAIA, Jeremiah, Emmanuel, Muhammad, and Billy. This spirit will be reincarnated as a prophet who will be born as a teacher of cosmic law, and he will enter the human race as one, Billy, who is one, EDUARD Meier, who will be a teacher of the Spirit. He walks in the light of Spirit. So, yeah. So this is all connected to the Emmanuel stuff, and yeah, to the time travels Billy done, and this all makes sense connected to the script. And this is basically the same stuff the Plejaren talk in the contact reports regarding the mission, regarding BILLI, that's like a compressed version, sounding pretty religious, but the Plejaren and the FIGU said it's no such a thing is called a religion, what they are trying to teach people. So my thoughts on the script: it's a wild, mysterious, graphic piece of alleged evidence. And of course it could easily be faked, so I want to see experts evaluating the dating and the material and doing an analysis of the writing and the so-called Lyrian language. If real, it's corroborating and solidify the case in a weird, similar, effective and matching way. So this was just a chunk of the, in my opinion, most important evidence, but there's way more. If you are willing to dig deeper, check out the wide variety of sources and links are provided in the description box. So before I wrap up the section, the general section about evidence, I want to add a thought considering the evidence in this case, for example, about the Lyran script or the medal analysis. So evidence which can be defined by one singular thing, for example, a wrong operating scientist or a wrong operating machine which was used for the analysis. If this case is actually real, agencies would have an easy game manipulating evidence or doing false flag operations or stuff along those lines. So we go to the next section, which is called critical questions and weak points. And with weak points I mean things which is like immediately turn off for some people. And that's a few things I want to highlight here. In this section I want to highlight things which are considered a singular turn off in my opinion. Single photos, videos or events which seem not right for whatever reason. But it's important to see the whole picture. The first thing I want to address is the UFO in a string theory. I'm going to show some footage here. This is like old footage I used in the first part about the BILLI Meier case. And you can see there's the craft moving around a tree. And it looks from the movement, some people say it looks like it is on a string. Some people claim they see a string. I don't see a string, to be honest. And additionally, I'm going to show it on the screen right now. If you look at the top, at the left bottom, you can see a movement, like a black shadowy movement, and people claim it's a head and it's a hand holding a stick with a model, but I can't really see those things. I see some movement right there, whatever it is, and my expertise is not enough to tell you if it's been faked at this time and space, or how a UFO moves in general. I don't have the expertise to tell you this, but I want to highlight this because some people define the whole decision, how they judge the case on this video, for example. The next point I want to address is the photos taken by BILLI on the so-called Grand Tour. Like, these are a special series of photos, which are like over 100 pictures. And they are showing female ETs, Asket and Nera photo, I'm going to show it on the screen right now, depicting dinosaur creatures, the Soyuz capsule in space, and even a tunnel through another universe. So pretty wild stuff. And Meier claims the whole film got replaced. Real pictures, the over 100 pictures, never saw the light of day. So this is pretty interesting because some people take this to debunk the case easily. So the pictures are showing things which were from books, science books, or Asket and Nera photo is from a TV show in the 70s or 80s. So weird thing is BILLI Meier saw the pictures. And he is saying he thinks the radiation of the beam ship where he was in distorted the picture, and that's why he not checked it in the first place. So the pictures were around, and he said nothing basically. And then after people pointed out, he said, "Oh yeah, that's not the real pictures." So that's basically how it happened. So I mean that's pretty wild. On the one hand, people say, "Okay, it's a fake, it's done, it's a clear case," but I want to give some other perspective on this here. Quick intersection. So, if the story is genuine, it's pretty thinkable that rather more evil advanced forces would try to use this opportunity to discredit the case. So I'm talking about some counterintelligence stuff here. But of course, I would not push too much in these forgeries. They are definitely fake. Even BILLI Meier say they are fake. So that's about these wild pictures. I'm going to rotate them on the screen. And we go to the next part, which is about the laser gun stuff. Like, is this not too much? Like I mentioned about this special case, which seemingly never-ending content. Does stuff like this really accelerate the mission on this planet? talking about the laser gun story and pictures and trying to promote it, like not promoting it, but embedding it in the contact reports and in the material and showing this laser gun. For some people, it's just more a turn off, even if it's real. But yeah, we will talk more about critical and crucial questions regarding the case. And this section exists to pick up on the more controversial parts of the presented evidence. So yeah, we go to the next section, which is called Potential Motives for Hoaxing. In this section, I'm trying to elude general reasons why one would hoax a UFO or ET contact, in particular regarding to the Billy Meier case, which is, if it's a fictional creation, it's one, if not the most complex, dense and long-lasting ones I've ever heard by far. Many grifters are spread throughout the UFO field and many hoaxes have been debunked. I'm trying to use reason and empathy here, in general and in regards to the Billy Meier case. So I got like 5 sections here about why people, in my opinion, why people would create a hoax. The first one is attention. So people just want to get attention. They just want to feel special for some reason, so they talk shit basically. The second one is money or trademark. They want to push their brand. They want to get famous. They basically want to get viral to do other things, but not telling the truth. The third one is ego boost. They want to get, it's a little bit like attention, but more in a narcissistic way. They just think everything they touch and everything they see is special. So they overestimate their own value and it's basically the same thing like attention. 4 is counterintelligence, especially a thing called mimicry, where on mimicry you fake a genuine phenomena, as for example a UFO case, ET contact, and plant some seeds to control the narrative around something you could not control in the first place. And the 5th point is like parapsychology. So basically people which are sick in the head and we cannot fathom what they are seeing and what they are feeling and what's the life about basically for those people. So stuff like schizophrenia. So regarding the scale of evidence in this case, the accumulated evidence in this material, I can say one thing. If it's a fake, it's a very dedicated one, for sure. So in 1975, is it even possible to fake this all in the first place? Speaking technologically. The guy got 1 arm and no money. He isn't the charismatic cult leader type with extrovert energy. More the opposite. That's my personal opinion. I don't know the guy personally, but this is like shimmering through the contact reports and the material I've read. So if hoaxed, he clearly dedicated his whole life and surely did not end up rich or something along those lines. And are the FIGU people just blind believing followers and fell victim to attempts to instill beliefs? So the thing called proselytization, which I'm gonna pick up on this term later. And the non-FIGU witnesses and people altogether go along with the claims, and nobody is saying the guy's a hoaxer. The most people are saying the guy's a hoaxer are from the internet. The people around Billy Meier seem to be a normal thing that the guy is somewhat special. So biased or unbiased witness reports make the difference, I guess. In the end, I'm not able to 100% tell what and why a human does certain things and what he's thinking. But I think in this case it's possible to either prove or debunk it with combined powers and forces. So if I reach anyone with this material and anyone is planning to aspire to do something regarding the case, let me know in the comments. I happily will reply. So this was just a quick section, a few thoughts on hoaxing from my side. And now we go to the next section, which is called proselytization. So proselytization and why Billy Meier. At first I'm explaining the term and why it's connected to this case especially. Proselytization means attempts to instill beliefs. The first time I've read this term was on UFO Reddit. It means basically to induce someone to convert to one's faith, to recruit someone to join man's party or cause, or belief structure. Before I will talk about the case here, I want to add some thoughts. These kinds of words and terms, which seem to abstract reason or act, to believe something maybe because it makes sense, and additionally not forcing any material or immaterial costs from the individual, and make it look very negative by calling it a sect or a cult, with no substantial reason or evidence connected to it. There is a word, which I would not mention right now. I'm trying to describe it without mentioning it, which reminds me very much of the same modus operandi. It's coincidentally connected to a country which is included in warlike acts for many decades. But now it's even getting more worse, by involving, very recently, even more country or parties in sad and warlike strategy or acts. Did you guess it? The word I'm talking about is basically saying or labeling something as hateful against a certain kind of people, completely taking rational, logical, fair thinking, reason and cause and effect away from the equation. But I'm going off track here. Back to the Billy Meier case and the term proselytization, attempts to instill beliefs. With that above said, I really recommend the simple phrase, think for yourself. Of course, it's a bad thing to instill naive people to believe in your own promoted worldview or religion, but how many people on earth believe in the big religions based on multiple hundred years of oral tradition and regularly changed writings and versions? Which, by the way, caused a lot of misery in form of conflict and war. Additionally, to connect things, this case, with the whole FIGU group and the teachings and mission conducted, is a very rare thing in ufology, or at least on the scale. The 49 core group members are very committed and not so easily exchangeable. Talking about procreating group members. It's no casting type show, no easy thing. You are very bound to the thing, you are connected to it. It's not like they want to get everybody in the group. So nobody from this group want to recruit anybody in the first place. There's no incentive from any side, not even to mention financially. And if one wants to support the case, you can help as an external friend of the mission and that's it. So are we labeling people who are supporting any cause for any reasons victims of proselytization, for example donating money? I don't think so. So for me it's a mix of stupidity and bad incentive, maybe to discredit the case. In other words, if you really done your homework regarding the case, you will easily see that this term proselytization is not really matching any of the aspects on this case. If people are interested and even want to support the case out of their own free will and without any costs, I don't think it's right to call anything similar upon anybody conducting this. This doesn't mean that I think the case is necessarily true or false. So why Billy Meier? Like I already explained in the red thread section, and we just talked about the Lyrian script. So if you follow the narrative of the case of the story, you know Billy Meier is, he's basically the chosen one to do this. And it's going deeper and deeper. And if you read the whole case, you know why it's that. And some people just can't accept that they're not the greatest on the planet, and even in the case it's said that every human being is on their own progress of spiritual evolution. Nobody is better than anyone other. Even if Billy Meier talks about these advanced races and how they live, everybody got the same value, but they actually act like this. They don't pretend, they actually act like this. So this is a difference to our planet. So this was just a quickly reiteration from the red thread. Considering human psychology, this whole setting can be very delicate for everyone associated. So with setting, I mean this whole setting in the case. So regarding proselytization, it makes things clearly worse, especially for external people who doesn't know the reason and content of the so-called mission. And before we wrap up the sections, I want to give one last thought. The whole story reminds me of the very effective and famous religious stories, for example, Jesus and his guys. In the Jesus case, the whole knowing and the whole school of Christianity was only known many hundred years later. So this is not a positive example, but it is an example on how this case, maybe, if it's really genuine, will accelerate and get traction in multiple hundred years when Billy Meier is not longer alive. So we go to the next section. Positive feedback loop. I guess these 3 words are used to label many things. For example, in business and product distribution. And I guess there are many more meanings in this really complex and clear English language. But what I mean here is more psychological. In other words, if you more or less blindly believe everything a person says because you think this person is literally the truth. I want to give you a random example here. Richard Dolan. Don't get me wrong, I got a very high opinion of the guy, but imagine people who are blindly believe everything he says at any time and are not think for themselves, because they made a decision at one point to let Dolan, in this case, think for them in a certain area, ufology in this particular case. And they gave up thinking for themselves. This is very dangerous, and I just wanted to pick up on this in this brief section. People who are at least a little bit humble will admit that you should not believe everything they say, basically admitting that they are not perfect. In regards to the Billy Meier case, this effect might amplify for some people. Yeah, I want to pick up at the Billy Meier is the chosen one narrative in the case, and that's why this effect might amplify if people acknowledge this and trying to get a grip and research the case. If people completely believe in this case, it may be logical for them to just rely on Billy Meier and the FIGU members for any information affecting their worldviews. I'm strongly against such a behavior, even if the case is 100% genuine. To wrap up this section, I want to state that in the material, especially in the so-called creation energy teaching, it's taught to remain neutral and still question things, and most prevalent, to evolve your own spirit and proceed to learn things and potentially find the right path paired with some guidelines and moral values attached. And of course, a lot of substantial information about basically everything around us. Remaining neutral. Easier said than done. I want to pick up on these two words, which are very important to me. And I think especially when approaching such potential life-changing information. But not only in regards to the Billy Meier case. On the thumbnail I labeled the video unbased, which is basically reflecting the word neutral, which in reality is almost impossible to fully achieve for any human being. And to invest time and energy in something, there has to be some motivation, which in my case I want to clarify here in a quick manner. As I mentioned in the first video, Foliant 1, I've done about this case, it is pretty hard to present the case proper without educating myself about the whole of the data and the material. And I can say, as I was longer exposed and confronted with the material, I experienced many different angles in a decent amount of time. It was easier to remain neutral and trying to project many different approaches to the case, which I present in my two videos, the Foliant 1 and 2. So in addition to what I've said in the previous sections, I can recommend to try to stay as neutral as possible if you truly want to get the most information out of a case or out of information you are approaching. So we go to the next section, which is about the potential counterintelligence efforts surrounding the case. Before we talk about the forged photographs, I will talk about the potential counterintelligence and surveillance efforts conducted by most likely US secret organizations. In the 1970s and 80s, Wendell Stevens, ufologist and ex-military, was having over a dozen trips to Switzerland conducting investigation about the Billy Meier case on the spot. He reported every time they got checked by a CIA type of people, and there were clear signs of surveillance. They took photographs and copied them from Wendell, and they allegedly had a whole operation base near Billy Meier's location. Additionally, I want to mention a thing called plausible deniability, and the fact that many known and highly rated ufologists and journalists collectively talk bad about the case, if they do it at all. From Stanton Friedman over Jacques Vallée to George Knapp, who showed initial interest in the case, and at least I know of Knapp, got a multiple-hour briefing public to see for everyone on YouTube. Link is in the description. And it seems to me that the whole UFO pseudo-disclosure actors were getting informed to not talk about it, and if they have to do, they should discredit the case as a hoax. This stuff is around for 50 years, so even if it's a known hoax, it should be mentioned somewhere, eventually. Eventually in the Weaponized podcast with George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell. So what I want to say is, if they don't know, they can't be held responsible for knowing about it and eventually exposing lies to distract people for eventually getting to know the truth. So it's speculation, but the behavior around this case is very weird, and I really think plausible deniability is a real thing in ufology. If they know it's true and they can't control it, they ruin the reputation and credibility. This would enable all kinds of methods of counterintelligence and defamation, so I think it's very important to consider, especially with such delicate material. So let's talk about the great tour photo forgeries. Like I mentioned in Weak Points and the photographic evidence, there's a series of photos taken by Billy Meier which were removed and replaced with high-quality forgeries, photos from books and TV series to fully discredit Billy and the case. The Plejaren even said to Billy that this is really unfortunate and it will take hundreds of years for human technology to catch up to things like time travel to really prove what happened with the pictures. It's just so wild to even say that. Like, it's very wild in my opinion. They think that not even human agencies can done this type of manipulation at this time in space. They think it was like evil ETs to slow down the progress of this planet and sabotage the Plejaren mission. So this is like basically the statement from Billy Meier and the FIGU about these forgery pictures. So this indeed sounds all very wild and hard to believe. But I got some thoughts on this. If this case is genuine and ETs are a thing, it's logical to think there are multiple civilizations with different motives, and if one is in contact, maybe there are more with eventually more sinister game plan. It's only fair considering the level of craziness and horizon surrounding this whole case, so I think that's important to say. Another thing, which of course isn't proof as well, is the different level of complexity. To think this guy got this very, very complex story with so much details and over 50 written books by a one-armed guy, clearly, if not at least wasting his whole life for this lie. Supposedly. These very plastic-looking photographs from known books and TV would be a very weak attempt to solidify the case if acting fake. In other words, Billy Meier would endanger his life's work by doing these cheap forgeries. But of course, it's all speculation, and we got no proof for that as far as I know. So let's talk about genuine wonder. In the data of this case, you can find many things which we normal humans would consider a wonder or magic. In the same way, people from medieval times would react to our stories and the ability of our technology and wisdom, which is relative and totally normal for human beings of any kind if people are used to it in a great scale. So, the other way around, thinking about wonders might advance the horizon for future developments of any sort, especially technology. I want to mention some of these things from the case. The existence of ET civilizations and contact. The knowledge about space and other life forms which greatly exceed ours. Time travel. Traveling at or over light speed. Advanced technology of any imaginable sort. Human history and origin in general and from planet Earth. The human spirit and its evolution exceeding lifetime experiences. The laws of creation. We would call it God or the Big Bang. Rules of life and nature. Knowledge about known mysteries, Bermuda Triangle, ancient Egypt, Easter Islands, Atlantis, to name a few. The universe, the existence of multiple universes and the ability to traverse. Time-space configurations, or we would call it time dimensions or dimensions. Advanced knowledge about numerology and mathematics. And mental abilities like telepathy, levitation, meditation, telekinesis, farsight, and stuff along those lines. So this was just a few. I think it's fairly impossible to display entirely everything delivered in this case. All these things are something like eye candy for the mind, so we can call it mind candy. And the real crux is the mission and the creation energy teaching and the progression of evolution of the own spirit, which is nothing anybody have to pay for. It's simply reading and understanding the crucial parts of the material, certain books, etc. It's hard to imagine for me that all of these things, which are vastly considered science fiction, were embedded perfectly in multiple thousand pages of contact report, dialogue type of conversation, written down from a man who doesn't even bother to learn or write English, which would have made everything way more accessible, including so many things where a single individual would have some type of expertise in so many different fields, which seems so unlikely and wild to me. For anyone who want to get a detailed impressions in audio from, I will link the Randy Winters audio tapes, which describe the beginning up to the 110th contact. And it can be a good entry to the material. It's over a dozen hours, so yeah, you need some patience and some time to listen to these tapes. So this was this section. Let's go to the next one, and then we're going to do a thought experiment, a what-if scenario. So in this section I want to assume, at least for a moment, that Billy Meier is truthful and the story is 100% genuine, and explore some angles, possibilities and things which are worthy to talk about in short sentences or keywords. Going to be a quick one as we slowly approach the conclusion section of the video. So 1. It's a little bit like asking what happens after Earth humans made the first contact with an extraterrestrial race in general. 2. in pseudo-retrospect to see that are not choosing the White House lawn decorated with corrupt world leaders and instead procreate a fitting individual seems not so wild anymore. The whole perception of life in the universe, and especially our viewpoint of us being the pinnacle of life, would vanish in seconds. Rational thinking would lead to the conclusion to be a trustworthy civilization among others, more or less advanced ones, and the Earth needs at least a global committee to speak for the interests of planet Earth. The whole lot of technological progress in learning and exchanging knowledge with other ET civilizations. Same goes for the spiritual and knowledge regarding life and nature and so on. So these are just a few things. You can go in the comments and write things down. You can think about if we actually make contact with ETs and what will happen, or just a what if scenario. But I want to use the time carefully with this video, so we wrap this section up and proceed to the next one. So the reputation in ufology. The reputation in ufology of the Billy Meier case is of course depending on who you ask in the first place. But for me, who's really maneuvering through ufology for a maximum of 2 years, it took a long time to find something about the case, and I was very active catching up with the UFO literature and many cases and stories, from very detailed and serious and rather wild ones, with content partially over the top. Nothing in the YouTube algorithm was sending me to this huge case, which is present on YouTube through a few channels, and the algorithm should have ticked all boxes. But keeping this a little bit conspiratorial undertone aside, let's talk about the reputation. I was encountering this case on a very small channel, uploading almost daily content and covering basically all Twitter type socials, which I don't use, so he is basically in the digital trenches so other people don't have to do it. He was talking about the forgery Billy Meier photographs, dinosaur, Soyuz capsule, universal barrier, and I acknowledged the case for the first time, proceeding to listen to the audio tapes later on. So it took a while for me as a rather new but active person in this space. Basically everything I've heard of Billy Meier, excluding the FIGU channel and a few neutral channels, was bad reputation. And a quick label as a hoax, and the people I thought got knowledge about the case would never name it, only describing it in a raw, unprecise, generalistic way. Only if they weren't compromised by any CIA-type counterintelligence narrative, of course. So my statement to the reputation in the field is mostly invisible, and if noticed, declined as a hoax as quick as possible. In my opinion, the stigma is so high that you can't even mention the case without harming your own general credibility. Since I'm not around in ufology for that long, I don't know about all possible similar cases with equal scale or content, but there's one pretty recent case which I want to compare to the B.M.C, and that is the Chris Bledsoe case. Chris Bledsoe is a contactee from the US who claims to be in contact with an ET intelligence communicating via telepathy, and they are making themselves visible in form of light orbs, like blue lightning orbs. And he got his own long story to tell. I will source some material in the description. In part 1, Foliant 1, I've already mentioned the Bledsoe case in the prologue, and it was one reason for me to investigate the Billy Meier case via these videos. Because if ufology is kinda accepting the Bledsoe case, I bet the same people will be open-minded to look further into the Billy Meier case, because there are similar characteristics, but of course it's nowhere near the same story. For the Bledsoe case, there's hardly any real proof besides some witness testimony and the fact that the contacts are happening over a long period and involving the whole family, a little bit like with the FIGU group. But it's not humanoid and similar wild in terms of the general nature. I want to add that I believe that Chris Bledsoe, despite being around for a few years in ufology, Billy Meier is around for 5 decades, has made more profit out of his story than Billy Meier by selling an Amazon bestseller and being present on many platforms for podcasts, documentaries, and a Skinwalker Ranch spin-off, etc. People seem to be attracted, and there seem to be no measures to suppress or discredit the case from official media or channels, which we can't say about the Billy Meier case. So this is a rather different aspect which compared to each other are suggesting something entirely different. But I want to stop the speculation here. I will leave many links in the description to material from both cases if you want to inform yourself after this video. So before we proceed to the core conclusion and the final parts of this Foliant, I want to mention one more thing considering similar or slightly corroborating cases or sightings. Back to Richard Dolan, who's a walking library specified on UFO cases And I will play 2 connected clips from a podcast appearance in where he talks about Pleiadian-looking ETs, from encounters he got told about. Of course, this doesn't prove anything for the Billy Meier case, but there are many stories in entire ufology which describe contacts or sightings of advanced, more-looking humanoid ETs. So I will play the clips real quick, and then we go to the core conclusion.
Hotel, and the psychic friend grabs him and says, "That woman over there is not a human being." And they look over, and there's this absolutely beautiful blonde woman in this gorgeous blue outfit. It's Las Vegas, of course. You know, you see this kind of thing. But the friend is like, she's something about her. So the psychic friend and his wife go down an escalator to get away, and the colonel stays behind a little bit, and he's looking at this woman, and she's like maybe 25 feet away, not that far, and he's just looking at her. And then he said to me, "I heard her in my mind," essentially saying, "What do you think you're looking at? Just go about your business." So, something like that. That was the feeling he got. And it was startling to him. He's like, where did that come from? And then he said at that moment, she was joined by this beautiful blonde-haired man, also in blue. I'm thinking maybe, are they Cirque du Soleil? Who knows what they are, right? But anyway, he says the man's with her, they're conferring. He can't hear anything at this time. And then they start walking toward where he is at the escalator. And he's thinking, great. I'm going to talk to them. I'm going to confront them. This is what he's thinking. So they walk by him and he does nothing at all. He just like stands there, dumbfounded. They go down the escalator, but then he gets behind them on the escalator. And he says, and I heard them again in my mind. I'm like, well, what did you hear? He said, well, it was almost like a conversation. It's like he can hear us. He's not part of the program, something like that. We can ignore him. It was, I mean, I don't know if it was an exact verbal English that he got this or some kind of feeling, but this is what he got. By the way, I have one other story I'm going to tell you about this. So I'm in
these are so weird.
Erie, Pennsylvania.
It is eerie.
Yeah. I'm doing a UFO small event. And a lot of these events, like I'll have books and I'll sell them and sign them and so forth. So I'm at my table and this very nice woman, she's like 60 maybe, she comes up to my table with her husband and she tells me this story. She says, when I was 15 years old, it was 1965, she said, I was living in this small little town in Western Pennsylvania, tiny town, like everyone knew each other. And she said, especially in church, which is where I was when this crazy thing happened. So she's 15 years old. She's in church with her mother. And she said, this couple sat in front of them. She said they were like supermodel, male, female, blonde in this incredible blue clothing. She's describing almost the exact same thing that the colonel had described a year earlier when I'm talking to him in Vegas. This woman, they don't know each other, obviously. She said, yeah, they sit down in front of me in church. It's 1965. And she said, I was kind of blown away by them because they were absolutely stunning, like movie star perfection, apparently. So she's looking at them. And then she said, I was looking at their clothing, which was the most incredible fabric I'd ever seen. And she said, I'm wondering, why is no one else looking at these two people? Like they are so obviously not like anyone else in this church. And she said to me, and then I heard them in my mind. And before that, she said, this was a Catholic mass. And, you know, there's a lot of things going on in a Catholic mass. You have to sit, kneel, you sign the cross, you have to do all these things. And she said they were looking around like they didn't really know what to do. They were kind of following along. But she said, then I heard them in my mind. And it was like a conversation. And one of them said to the other, this lady was kind of funny. She said, one of them said to the other, well, it looks like we're fitting in pretty well here. And then the other one said, yes, except for the girl behind us who can hear us. That's when I'm sure her eyebrows went back up into her forehead. And then they shut it down, like she couldn't hear anything from them. So then Mass finally ends, church service ends, and they are in the middle of the church, I think, and they get up and they're going.
So we reach the second last chapter, the core conclusion, or to put it in better words, the summary and my final thoughts on this report for the time being. If someone asked me the simple question if the Billy Meier case is real or fake, my truly honest short answer would be, I don't know as of yet. Since I'm not able to give any ultimate judgment on the case, I will proceed to highlight some personal pros and cons regarding the material of the case. The documentation, the contact reports. I find it very remarkable that every happening, every contact is documented in thousands of words over decades of time. The physical evidence, especially the metal and the sound. The plenty clear photographs from 1975 on, like for over multiple decades as well, and the videos showing multiple craft is very remarkable evidence. And for me the most important part, the core narrative of the so-called mission, seem entirely positive. There's no money motive and no greed involved. And one last thing I want to mention I missed in the red thread is the overpopulation thing. The Pleiadians think that this planet is massively overpopulated. They say a planet of this size can hold like 500 to 600 million people to live in harmony and evolve their spirits in a good way. So I mean, they should know if they got contact and relations to many species and civilizations in space. They know many planets, they know many civilizations, how they live, so I think they can estimate it. And if you look on this planet, it would make some sense. But we, the human race, we don't know on other worlds and planets and other people and species, NHI or humanoid ETs, so we can't really, we ain't got a threshold to say how many people can live on a planet, but I think I can see that this planet is overpopulated. Then we go to the cons, to the bad aspects. It's a very old case and it's hard to find first-hand accounts which seem entirely neutral. The weird forgeries, the wild photographs, which ridicule the whole case and Billy Meier for many people. The explanation seems pretty weak, and I think why the aliens did not help on this occasion to create better evidence and don't let this happen, these wild forgeries. The next thing is, why is nobody representing this so important material in the recent podcast age and the new generation media? This can have many reasons, but I'm trying to change this with these two videos. And the next thing is, many people question the UFO footage, the UFO model on a string. Like I said, there are some videos, they look pretty fake, but I think we got no thing we can relate to a real UFO. So, but it's a big initial impression. I wonder if it's not possible to update or create better, more compelling videos if the Plejaren really want to gain more credibility. Maybe in the time and space we live in right now with HD cameras and so on. I want to add that this type of list of pros and cons is very simplistic, and I've decided to put it in to show some potential aspects on either side, and there are more thoughts and angles than straight judgments. It's important for me to add that. If we look at the evidence and the remarkable photographs, it seems like it's either genuine or a very malicious, very high effort and sick act of lying on so many occasions. In oral or written form, a hoax on the next level, considering the year and the duration over which a huge array of detailed information got spread in the contact reports. And this was not even motivated by money or greed, like in many other cases. Grifters do this. Everything is possible in a good or bad way, so only because it seems senseless doesn't mean anybody or nobody is inspiring to do so for whatever reasons. I truly believe people who are interested in ufology and all of these questions which are connected should take a look at this case, and if more people do so and more research and serious updated analysis can be conducted, I think it's possible to solve the case. And see if it's really this potential life-changing contact from which we all can learn from. Or if not, to put it away forever. Until this point, I will remain neutral and collect more knowledge on my journey. I will surely keep you updated about the case and further developments. And feel free to start your own research or connect with people eventually in the comment section. I will reply and answer everything I can. I'm also happy for any feedback about the video and any additional or corroborative information which can be provided. Before I end this program, let's proceed with the last segments, the closing thoughts, the epilogue of this video. So, the final chapter. Is it even possible to go back to normal after getting exposed to this case? I guess for the most people it's only possible while calling this case a hoax. Because otherwise there would be no reason to hinder your own spiritual development. Is this proselytization? I'm trying to be as neutral as possible here. Like I mentioned in the what if section, I figured at this point I can live with black or white. Regarding the case it means true or false. Learning about morals and values, the human, our spirit, meditation and space will not harm anyone and it's free, waiting for us to be explored. If the information about general things, like for example how time travel works, can be eventually corroborated through our own organic, Earth-human scientific breakthroughs in the future. I hope maybe some interested and smarter people than me will see this and take on this case and solve it to 100%. And I can see people commenting and thinking smarter people already looked at it and said it's a hoax. And I'm okay with later realizing it's all fiction and I wasted some time and energy to solve it and look for the truths and made it public, so others can maybe learn from it if it's real or false. And of course, if we in the future can say it's 100% the truth and it was there directly in front of our eyes for so many years, I guess that would be a very devastating, very humbling revelation. So to wrap up this video, I want to add a few things. I've talked a lot and it took some time to work through the material and reflect it. And believe it or not, I've cut it a lot from this video which I thought was not important enough to be in. And depending on future developments and interests on the case, I'm looking forward to eventually make it a trilogy. But this time, I want to involve more voices. I'm going deeper into creation energy teaching and the more spiritual contents embedded in the material. So I hope this video was somewhat interesting and thank you for taking your time to watch it. See you next time. Libra.
To build starships that can travel faster than the speed of light. To read other people's minds. To become invisible. To transport our bodies